On Friday, April 19, 2013, Ruslan Tsarni, the uncle of the alleged Boston bombers, spoke out against his nephews during a press conference held at his home in Montgomery Village, Maryland. And during this press conference, Ruslan had some rather unkind words to say about Islam extremism. About a week after this, Daniel Hopsicker revealed some details regarding Tsarni's background, such as being the son-in-law of a retired CIA agent, and alleging that Tsarni incorporated a business that was sending aid to Islamic terrorists in Chechnya. I will admit that this did seem legitimate at first glance, but I soon determined that upon further investigation that this is just another case of cherry-picked facts to support a narrative and not much else. Daniel Hopsicker seems to make a lot of leaps based on incomplete research. Hopsicker claims that Tsarni incorporated the Congress of Chechen International Organizations, CCIO, in Maryland, and that he was operating it from the home of an ex-CIA agent. But if you look at this screenshot, you'll see that Tsarni is listed as the resident agent, and that the address is listed as the principal office. If you go to the Maryland Department of Taxation Business Services website, and look up their glossary, you'll find the legal definitions for resident agent and principal office. The state of Maryland defines the resident agent as a person that a sheriff can walk up to and hand a summons in order to get jurisdiction over the entity for the court. It may or may not be one of the owners or officers. In some cases, this can be a Maryland corporation. In all cases, the address must be a physical address, no P.O. boxes. So, the resident agent is neither owner, operator, executive, nor management. It is basically a legal contact, in which case it is not uncommon for a business to list their resident agent as a law firm or someone who practices law, which just happens to be a part of Tsarni's background. The purpose and definition of principal office as defined by the state of Maryland is: all Maryland entities require some Maryland address where certain records are to be kept or certain requests can be made on management. This may or may not be where the actual business endeavor is conducted. For foreign entities, this is a mailing address that can be anywhere. As stated, the principal office is just a place where records are kept, which may or may not be the actual place of business. This in no way indicates the physical location of the business, and based on this you cannot know what Tsarni's specific role was in CCIO, let alone claim that he incorporated the company. I took it upon myself to search for some Maryland businesses on this database, and here I found a business called Pat's Pizza, which lists their resident agent and principal office at a personal residence, while their actual business is located elsewhere. I also looked up a prominent Maryland business called Bethesda Softworks. Bethesda Softworks Incorporated lists a law firm as their resident agent. As Bethesda Softworks LLC, this same law firm was listed as their principal office. So based on this, the extent to which Tsarni was involved with CCIO is not known, and there isn't enough evidence here to suggest that he founded or operated the business from Fuller's home in Rockville, Maryland. Based on this facts, Hopsicker claims that CCIO was sending aid to Islamic terrorists in Chechnya. If you read the footer of this fax, which was conveniently cropped out on Hopsicker's article, you'll see that its listed address is in Washington, D.C., not in Maryland. Furthermore, this document was written to thank BIF, Benevolence International, for the 2,500 pairs of shoes that were sent to Chechnya, while requesting an additional 5,000 pairs of shoes for Chechens. This does not prove that CCIO sent or received funds or supplies to anyone. The only thing that can be surmised from this document is that CCIO was a proxy of some sort, because there's simply not enough information to determine what their purpose actually was. Another important piece of relevant information that Hopsicker left out were the specific details of Benevolence International Foundation. While it is true that BIF funneled money to terrorist organizations, The issue here is how they did it. This document details the specifics of BIF's activities and even refers to the CCIO facts about the shoes. While it is true that these shoes were actually anti-mine boots, it is worth noting that these anti-mine boots were never delivered, as BIF shifted their efforts towards standard footwear and uniforms for soldiers in Chechnya. This indicates that BIF was responsible for both the purchasing and fundraising for Chechen soldiers. BIF fraudulently solicited donations from people all over the world and here in the United States under the guise of humanitarian efforts. Considering BIF's deceptive tactics and the fact that so many people unknowingly supported terrorism by donating to them and associating with them in some way, and also given the fact that BIF's real activities were not known at the time, so how can you be so sure that Tsarni, CCIO, or anyone else at that time knew that their donations were not going to civilians? And yet, another important piece of relevant information that Hopsicker seemed to leave out was the fact that there was a war between Chechnya and the Russian Federation taking place at the time CCIO requested aid for Chechens. And of course this war affected civilians as well as the soldiers, thus explaining the need for civilians to have anti-mine boots. That being said, would it not be expected that a Chechen man living here in the U.S. might be sympathetic toward his people in Chechnya and just might assist an organization that is purporting to send aid to his people? I have done a very extensive search for more information regarding the Congress of Chechen International Organizations, and I have found nothing outside of the two documents referenced in Daniel Hopsicker's articles. If this had been an organization funneling large amounts of money or purchasing supplies for terrorists on a large scale, I would expect that they would have left behind a much larger footprint. And not only that, Ruslan Tsarni's name only appears on one of these documents. And based on all of this, I'm left with the following questions. What was Tsarni's role in CCIO other than being a legal contact? What was the purpose of CCIO? Why is there a CCIO in Maryland and another one in DC? Were they different branches of the same company? Are they two different companies with the same name? Did they know that BIF was in support of terrorism? We have a lot of important questions, but not enough information to answer them. I agree that this might seem like a suspicious set of circumstances, and perhaps it does deserve a more thorough investigation. But I don't see anything here that proves that Tsarni was involved in terrorism, let alone the Boston bombings. Daniel Hopsicker fancies himself as an investigative journalist, but I have come to doubt that claim personally because I think an investigative journalist would have done more thorough research. One thing that Hopsicker could have done is looked up the address on the CCIO facts and determine their specific location at the time and contact the real estate firm who currently owns the property, for they might have information on previous tenants. Another thing Hopsicker could have done is ordered copies of CCIO's articles of incorporation, which could have cost him $15. And perhaps those documents contained more information in regards to CCIO's purpose. This is something that I would expect a real investigative journalist to do. But if your objective is just to slap the guilty label on someone without doing any real research, then perhaps none of this is necessary. Hopsicker also mentioned Tsarni's connection to Halliburton and his employment with Big Sky Energy, because foreign guy plus big oil plus ex-in-law of a CIA agent plus working for government plus practicing law equals proof of a false flag, PSYOP, cover-up, New World Order, Illuminati, and reptilian human hybrids. But could it be that a man who has a background in legal practice and national origins from a part of the world that happens to be endowed with an abundance of natural resources was simply a highly qualified and lucrative candidate for the occupations that he held? Maybe. How does any of this connect to his nephews living 450 miles away? What proof do we have that Tsarni radicalized them or was involved in any way other than a bunch of circumstantial and mostly explainable coincidences? Would conspiracy theorists be making similar connections if he had been working for big banks, big pharma, or big agra? Most definitely.